Now, the NCUA has also been vilified for becoming a little strict with its examinations. And as you mentioned before, you all put out your white paper, but that's also justified, I would think, too, correct? The agency getting tougher.
Well, I think the agency getting tougher is, it has to be consistent in being tougher. They have to ask the right questions, and it has to be handled in the right manner. One of the issues we continue to hear a lot about is guidance. The examiners coming in saying guidance is a regulation. We were very pleased very recently to see Bob Fenner say no, guidance is not a regulation. Mm-hmm. I think so. You need to step back. The credit union needs to step back and say, where does it say I have to do that? Is it guidance, or is it regulation? And they have to work through it in a disciplined, gentlemanly manner, so to speak, with the agency. Mm-hmm. Anthony's paper has some great thoughts and ideas that I encourage everyone to read.
Now, the NCUA has come up with some framework and has a regulation in place for the corporates. What's the next, or what's next for natural person credit unions? Do you see any future trouble on the horizon?
There are a number of natural credit unions that continue to struggle in this environment. I think, again, we're coming out of the storm. Hopefully there won't be another significant economic downturn. Obviously what's going on in the Middle East creates some concern as to a future economic downturn. Thus far things seem to be holding fairly well for us. Mm-hmm. And we need to recognize that there are forces beyond us that we just have to adjust to. And we have to be prepared for what's known as the black swan, that is the event that you just can't anticipate, but you nevertheless have to be prepared for.
Right. And that goes into the NCUA's recent regulation on director education, knowing what's going on outside your own four walls, and you all had some concerns about that. Can you talk about that? Yeah,
we had concerns about the director education in the sense that it was not articulated as to exactly what the board members had to do with regard to education. For lack of a better term, it was void for vagueness. And so I think the NCUA now, as a result of our stepping in, which we did very, very quickly, has put forth some parameters such that the examiners won't be sitting there and looking at board members and quizzing them on the finances,
right.
etc. We are also offering certificates and training to the board members, both on financial literacy, and I also mention us for their supervisory committee. Mm-hmm. They can get that through our webcast or attending volunteers or annual conference. And I sign those certificates and letters to each CEO personally, thanking them for doing it and hoping we're helping them.
Now, there are also some large troubled credit unions that are privately insured. Does that concern you?
I'm concerned about any credit union and the reputation risk that any credit union gives. Hopefully that we will come through this with the privately held insured credit unions like we're coming through with those that are federally insured, and we'll have no difficulties. I would say at the same time that the qualifications to transfer to the NCUA are fairly strict in statute and regulation. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, it may be that some of the privately held insured credit unions cannot get into the federal system. That will be very unfortunate to them and their members, but they made a choice to go a certain direction, and we believe they have to live with that choice.
Okay, and right now, partly privately insured credit unions, but the NCUA has a proposal out to ask for voluntary assessments from non-federally insured credit unions. And what position is NAFCU taking?
We've taken a position of being opposed to that, mm-hmm. All right, as well as opposed to you can only join one corporate credit union. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the corporate credit unions, I would note this, and the volunteer training. I think in this day and age, what goes through the business industry or the commercial industry or the for-profit eventually flows through the nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And I think that the board members of credit unions need to recognize that their duties and responsibilities are no different if they were on the board of GE mm-hmm. or Walmart or AIG. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're volunteers or not paid, mm-hmm. or the fact the regulator comes in and examines them, or the fact that the regulator even has someone on site does not absolve them of their responsibility, their fiduciary responsibilities. And that's the reason we've done training with regard to that as well.
Now, there is also a trend toward consolidation of the credit union industry. And explain to me how that affects your trade association.
It hasn't affected us at all. We've come through this storm very, very well. Unlike the rest of the industry that, or I would say and in this sense I'm speaking about the association industry. I think about 3/4 to maybe more associations ran in the red. They had to curtail programs. They had to cancel 401ks and employee benefits. We didn't have to do any of that, and we were in the black every year. And so the members continue to support us. I think they continue to recognize the value of NAFCU. We had a fine year last year again. Probably one of the top in the top half since I've been here, so it has not been a problem to us. At the same time, we try to stay very focused on the problems that are concerning our members, and I think that's what's helped us. What we did with corporate stabilization, getting the legislation passed, what we've done with the regulator with regard to mergers, and the insurance fund and prospects for assessments for the insurance fund and corporate stabilization. I think everybody's recognized that.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I really appreciate you coming over very early on a Monday morning.
Absolutely.
And the weather's getting better, and hopefully the economy's getting better, and credit unions too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Fred.
Thank you.